So what time did it end? What time did you drop them off? Okay. Okay. We're holding, I think, on the Mishnah and Daf Tzaddik and Beis. Right? That makes sense. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. For learning. Beis Hamikdash. For Shlema, for all those that were injured. Chaim, what do you hear? How's Shalom Bear doing?
He's just doing his time. He's been on like trance. He's been. I don't know. I don't know if he got much sleep, but he's just been doing his time. He's trying to use the momentum.
Right. That's pretty crazy there.
I spoke to him very shortly, but every time I spoke to him, he's putting on film to somebody.
Wow. Okay. Need Mashiach. Okay. Let's take a look over here. We have a Mishnah. Mishnah said we've been talking about what takes priority over something else, right? What comes first? Spoke about how something that's frequent, something that's tader, comes before something that's less tader. Frequent comes before less frequent. And then we spoke about Makudesh, something that's holy. The holier it is, it comes first. Now, let's see. Kol chatzei shebetzera, chedmes la shames. Interesting that says Kol chatzei shebetzera. All types of sin offerings, I guess it means all types. All types of sin offerings come before the guilt offerings. We learned from the Mishnah that the blood of the chatas has 4 applications. We learned before, as opposed to the asham, which only has 2 which are 4. So the actual 4 comes first. Now the exception to that is chutz mi asham mitzayra mipnei shuba al hechsher. There's actually a different girsa. Rashi says mishuba al hechsher sam mitzayra. That's what the Shita Mechbetza says. That's it. The asham of the mitzayra, which means the mitzayra, which is the leper that's doing his purification, he brings an asham, and that allows the mitzayra to now eat from kachim. Before that, he's called a mechusar kapara. He's lacking his atonement, which really means that he already waited, I think there's 7 days, and then he waits for nightfall, and then after the following day he brings the sacrifice. His purification is done, but he still needs, in order to be able to eat from other sacrifices, he needs one more sacrifice that lets him in. So he's missing that. So because that sacrifice lets him in, and now he can enter the temple and he can eat from Kodshim, that gives a special superiority to that type of asham, and it will come before a chatas. This has a question that the mitzayra also has to bring a chatas, and if he doesn't do the chatas, he also can't come into it. So the chatas should have the superiority that first of all it atones, and also it allows him to eat. This just allows him to eat. Says answers that the blood that's put on the fingers, on the thumb, and is from the asham, not from the chatas. So therefore, the asham is considered the one that permits him more than the chatas because of those applications. So he says another teretz. The other teretz is he says that it's not that the asham comes before the chatas of the mitzayra. Chatas of the mitzayra would actually come before the asham of the mitzayra. But the asham of the mitzayra comes before other chatais of others that don't have that superiority that allow someone to come and eat. Okay, whatever, different explanations. Kol asham shebeteira ben b'nei shtayim. When someone brings a guilt offering, an asham, the age of the animal has to be within its 2nd year. It means after its first birthday. It has to be an ayil and an ayil is 2 years old. Born kasef shkalim, and it has to come with at least the cost of 2 coins. Be'erkecha, the pasuk says be'erkecha kasef shkalim, which means 2 sela. Chutz mi'ashem nazir v'ashem mitzayra shein born b'nei shnasan ve'in born kasef shkalim. There's 2 asham nazir and asham mitzayra. They come in their first year, which is one of the sacrifices in its first year. Korban Pesach. It says keves ben shnasi. A lamb as opposed to a ram, right? A lamb is in its first year, and a ram would be in its second year. Vein born because of shkalim, they don't also have that official cost. Okay, kshem shekoidmin ba'akravasan, kach kaidin b'achilasan. The same way that we discussed which sacrifice is offered first, the same way when it comes to eating it, you would also eat that one first. That takes priority. Shlamim shalemesh. Let's say you have yesterday's shlamim. Shlamim is you have 2 days to eat, so it's possible to be yesterday's. The other sacrifices you only have 1 day. So the shlamim, yesterday's shlamim, which is in the Azara, we're talking about now that it wasn't shechti there. Shlamim shal yaim, and the shlamim of today, which one comes first? Shalemesh kaidmel shal yaim. Yesterday's comes before today's, so there's a backup, but you don't cut the line. You do yesterday's before today's. Shlamim shalemesh, yesterday's shlamim, chatas v'ashem shalayim, and you have a sin offering of today. That's a good question. Sin offering or guilt offering of today, they would take priority over the shlamim because they're holier than the shlamim. But this is yesterday's. What takes precedence? Yesterday's or the holy? Shlamim shalemesh kaidin, yesterday's comes first. Reb Meir, that's Reb Meir's view. Chamaim chatas kedemes, neshikachim. It's machlekes. I'm say that the chatas comes first. Okay. But Kulan, try to remember why that it's Reb Meir that holds that yesterday's comes first. Okay. But Kulan, all sacrifices. Yeah, that's when the time starts. What do you mean? Oh, you mean how long it stays in the temple? Yeah, it could be a few days.
Before the
depends on the backup. Yeah. There's an assumption, though, that when a woman leaves, she brings her sacrifice and she leaves, so assume that it was brought that day. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. Question: can they do the smicha and leave, and then the kainim will do it the following day? That's a good question. All sacrifices, the kainim can change the way they eat it, which is lachlan sluyin shlukin milvushalim. They could eat it roasted on the fire, cooked, boiled in the water, or just shlukim is very boiled. Mevushal is just plain boiled, and also lasis l'sechet tavlin chulin. They can put in spices. I like to put the steak spices on the steaks. Steak spice. Table truma, or spices of truma. Reb Shimon. That's what Reb Shimon says. We had this machlekes once before. Reb Meir says, don't put in tabli truma. Because the truma is going to get ruined. You only have for truma you can eat it whenever. There's no deadline. There's no expiration date on truma, but you do have an expiration date on the karban. So if you add truma to the karban, you've just decreased its expiration date, and now it's going to end up becoming pasul in a day, right, or 2 days. Okay, famous Gemara. Actually, remember this from Levi Marlowe's bar mitzvah a long time ago. maybe Mendim, one of the bar mitzvah boys. Remember, he said a pilpul on this Gemara. If anyone wants to harass him, he remembers it. It says, Ibailo, they have a shaila, they have a question. Tadar and Makudish, if you have, we said that anything that's frequent comes first. We also said that anything that's holy comes first. What happens if there is a conflict? You have one thing that's frequent, and you have one thing that's holy. Which one wins? Who trumps? Do we say that the tader, the one that's frequent, comes first because it's frequent? Maybe we say that the holy one comes first because it's holy. Tashemasa, come and listen. The carbon tamid comes before the carbon musaf. Because we're going to have our answer. What's holier? The musaf. It's Shabbos. Musaf is Shabbos. The tader, the carbon tamid is just the regular carbon, the same carbon that they brought yesterday. And the musaf is only special for Shabbos, so that's for sure holier. Even though the musaf even though the musaf is more holy, because the musaf is only coming because it's Shabbos. It's not a weekday thing; it's a Shabbos thing. Gemara says, take a look at this, Chaim. This is a Chassidish Gemara. You got to see this. It says, "Atu Shabbos lemusfanahani." You think Shabbos only influences the musaf, that it makes the musaf holy? And it doesn't make holy the carbon tamid. The carbon tamid of Shabbos is a Shabbos carbon tamid. I know you brought the same tamid yesterday, but now it's Shabbos, so it's totally different carbon tamid. So you can't prove. I'm sorry, like the food. Yeah, you had cereal yesterday. Certain foods are only Shabbos. Chalent, it's Shabbos. It's not the chalent. This is the coffee. The coffee. So. Turns out that the holiness of the carbon tamid is the same holiness as the musaf, and so therefore the fact that the tamid comes first is just an added part, but otherwise they're equal. Tashma, come and listen. Musfi Shabbos kaidel musfi Rosh Chodesh. Shabbos comes before the musaf of Shabbos comes before Rosh Chodesh, which means if Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos like this week, then which musaf comes first? Musaf of Shabbos. It says 1 second. Shabbos isn't called Yom Tov. It's not called Mayed. And Rosh Chodesh is called a Mayed. So, what's the pasuk? It says, Yom Simchaschem U'Madechem Rosh Chodshechem. Okay. So, we would assume that the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh has an added holiness. The Gemara says, Atu Rosh Chodesh l'Musafim Dideyahani l'Musfi Shabbos l'Yahani. What do you think? Rosh Chodesh only affects its own Musaf. It doesn't affect the Musaf of Shabbos. The same answer we gave before. When it's Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos, it's not just a regular Shabbos. It's a Rosh Chodesh Shabbos, and everything on that becomes holier, like Rosh Chodesh. Tashma, this Shabbos, take out 3 Sifrei Torah. So by the certain Chassidim, they have three kugels. Every Rosh Chodesh means another type of kugel. You ever hear that? Yeah, you have to have 3. She would have 3 types of herring. Tashma, come and listen. Musaf Rosh Chodesh, Kedem LaMusaf Rosh Hashanah. The Musaf of Rosh Chodesh comes before the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. We're talking about Rosh Hashanah is always Rosh Chodesh, right? Because it's the first day of Tishrei. So, but we don't mention Rosh Chodesh really in the Tefillah, but the carbon we do bring a carbon of Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashanah. Sire, the goat. So you bring the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, because Rosh Chodesh is more common than Rosh Hashanah. So you bring that first. No, that has to do with something else. It's to do with the Shabbos V'Varchim. So this has to do with actually Rosh Chodesh itself. So we say that the one that's more frequent comes first, which means that we have a proof that more frequent is more significant and more holy. It says Atu Rosh Hashanah must be must Rosh Chodesh Layahani, the same teretz. You think that the carbon Rosh Chodesh is not a Rosh Hashanah carbon Rosh Chodesh? Rosh Hashanah affects it as well. Everything on that day gets the holiness of Rosh Hashanah. Tashema. Okay, so now we go to a Machlekes Beisil and Beishamai regarding how to say Kiddush. Beisil says that you say always the Hagafen before the Kiddush, and Beishamai says you say the Kiddush before the Hagafen. This is Gemara Pesachim, Gemara Brachos as well, I think. So, question now is, which one comes first, the Hagafen or the Kiddush? The Hagafen is more frequent than, you say you drink wine more often than Kiddush. Why? Not because you like wine, but because you drink wine at a bris, you drink wine at benching, you drink wine. There's other times that you drink wine, which is not just Kiddush of Shabbos. So the Kiddush of Shabbos is only once a week, Friday night. Like Shabbos day, you don't say any Kaddish of Shabbos. You don't say that bracha. It's only once a week. And the wine comes more often than once a week. So possibly every time you bench. So it says that the Kiddush of the wine comes first. It gives two reasons over there. Davaracher, another reason that Beisil gives, because the wine is more frequent. That's what the Mishnah says. Why Beisil holds that you make the bracha on the Hagefen before the wine, before the make the Hagefen before the Kiddush. We see that the one that's more frequent takes precedence over the one that's more holy. In these two blessings, which one would be more holy? The Shabbos blessing would be more holy. Even though the Shabbos bracha is more holy, it's coming from Shabbos. The Gemara says, "Atu Shabbos lebercha. You don't think that hagafen that you're making on Shabbos is a Shabbos hagafen? That's a special Shabbos hagafen that you're making. So even the hagafen has the holiness. This is going to be hard to answer. It's hard to because every time we try to answer it, it says that's also the same holiness. Tashema. Come listen. Rabbi Yechanan says halacha. The halacha is mispal ladam shel musaf achakach shel musafen. We officially set up the tefillas of Shabbos that you do Shachris, Musaf, and then Mincha. That's the official setup, and the reason for that is because Musaf is supposed to be davened before the 7th hour, according to one opinion, and Mincha only starts from 6.5 hours into the day. So usually we're finished Musaf well before Mincha. However, if someone would be not finished Musaf and they're davening Mincha, so he would daven Mincha first, and then Musaf after. Yeah, that's the rule. Mincha would come before Musaf, if you have both of those in front of you. Usually you don't have that. Usually because you finish Musaf before Mincha, before even the Zman of Mincha. It's usually in the morning. We daven Shachris and most shuls, except over here on Shabbos and Barchim, that close to 11. It cuts it really close. If you can daven Mincha already at 12 something, so it could be the Musaf is the Zman. You should really be davening Mincha. It's not. We don't really overlap. But anyway, so if it would overlap, then Musaf would come first. Mincha would come before Musaf. The Musaf is holier than Musaf is a special Shabbos. Mincha is that we daven Mincha every day of the week. So it says Atu Shabbos, L'tfilas Musaf Nahani, L'tfilas Mincha Layani. What do you think? The Mincha on Shabbos is not a Shabbos Mincha. The Mincha on Shabbos is a Shabbos Mincha. Yeah. This Gemara is wild. Tashema. Shlam Shalemesh. Chatas V'ashim Shalayim. Okay, now we get a little complex over here. Yesterday's Shlamim, we said, wasn't standing in front of you, and you have, which wasn't shechted yet. That's what we were assuming, right? And the Chatas and an Asham of today. So which one comes first? We know that yesterday takes precedence over today, right? And however, but the Shlamim is not as holy. So we say Shlam Shalemesh Kaidmin. The yesterday Shlamim comes first. But let's say both of them would be today. Then Chatas Vasham Kadmi, the Chatas Vasham would come first. Why does the Shlamim come first? Because that's yesterday's. But if it would both be today, we're medayik, we're implying. But if they would both be from today, all three from today, then we would do the Chatas and Asham first. Afagav the Shlamim Tadiri, even though the Shlamim is more frequent. The Shlamim is more frequent because they can come as a donation. So you can bring 10 shlamim. You can't bring 10 chatas. Only because of a sin you could bring it. So you're limited on how you could bring this. Someone can give, just another shlamim. So yes, similar to the wine. Only thing is the wine has other obligations. Benching and different things. But here, this is just a donation. Okay. Amar Rava says, Matzi Kamret. You're telling me about frequent. Tader Kami Bailan. You have to tell me how they translate the difference. I was translating prevalent is Matzi, and Tader means frequent. Look in the Quran, what they say the differences. Tader Kami Bailan. Matzi like Kami Bailan. You see, the difference, I'll tell you what the difference is, the way it's explained is that matzah means that it could happen often. It doesn't mean there's any obligation for it to happen. Qadr means that there's an obligation for it to come every day. So we were asking something that has an obligation to come every day, it takes precedence over something that the obligation is not every day. But now we're saying not the obligation of it to come every day, just how often it is. Nothing to do with obligation. Just how often does it happen? They use the same words, prevalent and frequent. I don't think they even looked at the art scroll. They looked at the Sonsino, maybe. Are you speaking of a common offering? Common. We raised the dilemma with regard to frequent offerings. Not a dilemma with regard to common. So okay, they use common as prevalent, common, same thing. Okay, so we got rid of that Tader doesn't mean matzah. Amalei Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'Rava. Huna bar Yehuda says to Rava, "Atu matzah lav Tader." Isn't it the same thing? But Tanya, we even have a brisa. It says, person will do a sin. Pasuk is coming to tell me that you only have to bring a korban chatas if it's a violation of a leisase, not a violation of not a neglect of a positive mitzvah. Now, even though usually a korban chatas is brought for something that if you would have done on purpose, there would be a punishment of kares. Do it by mistake, unintentionally, you bring a chatas. There's two positive mitzvahs, but there's also a neglect of those positive mitzvahs as kares, and that is korban pesach. Someone neglects the korban pesach, and also bris milah. Neglects bris milah. When exactly the kares kicks in, I'm not sure, but if he neglects, I guess his entire life, the bris milah, so then he has kares. Now the question is, so what about the chatas? So it says oitzias pesach she'ena tader v'leitzias milah shitadira. It says that there's no chatas for the pesach because it's not common, but I won't exclude the milah because it's not so common. Pesach is more common than milah. Because there's only an obligation once a life to do milah, but Pesach is every year. It's an obligation of the father when he's a baby. When he gets older, it becomes his obligation. So, we're thinking that maybe when the Torah excludes shlamim from the, excludes the korban chatas from one of these sins, it would only be excluding the korban pesach, but not the milah. Maybe I should still be chayav the chatas on the milah because it's so common, because it's less common. Now, what do we mean when we say over here? It says Pesach She'ina Tader. It's in English Shitadira. The Gemara is proving that the word Tader is being used even in a case of Matzah. I don't know why that's so, because Matzah is usually when there was no obligation. You see. So circumcision is considered a frequent mitzvah that is performed more often than the Paschal offering, despite the fact that there's no obligation to perform circumcision at any particular frequency. Oh, well, I get it. We were understanding that Tader means that the obligation is at a specific time. And Matzah means that it could be an obligation, but it has no designated time for it. Bris Milah doesn't have the designated time of the year when it needs to be done. It's whenever the baby's born, whenever, right, 8 days after the baby's born. So the Gemara, so therefore we see that we interchange the use of the word tader is when we should have been using the word matzi. It means tader and matzi is the same thing. So therefore, we'll take us back to the question before. If I have a shlamim and a chatas, even though the shlamim is more matzi, but the matzi and tader is the same thing. The Gemara answers that when the Bryce over here is talking about what we would have excluded from the Chatas, we would have only excluded the Korban Pesach and not the Mila. It says, "My Tadira." What does it mean over here that it's frequent? Tadira b'mitzvahs. It has more mitzvahs. Bris has more mitzvahs. Why is the bris more mitzvah? You would think it's the opposite. Sure. So Rashi says, because it says the 13 covenants, it says regarding the bris. It says 13 times the word covenant, the word bris. It talks about the circumcision. It's considered greater than other mitzvahs because of this. That's the Gemara in the Darim. I don't know about that. I'm sure there is, The other commentaries say that a person, it's Tadir b'mitzvahs because a person, once he has a bris his whole life, it's still considered that he has the mitzvah. Okay. Ibayasema, or else another teretz is Mila legabi Pesach kitade damya. Mila legabi Pesach kitade damya. We're doing a comparison here. Mila legabi Pesach, the Mila is more tader to the Pesach as opposed to the Shlamim, to the Chatas, which the Shlamim would only be Matzah. See that. A little bit of a hard answer. Why do we say it? It's because it has to be because people are born more often. I guess there's an expectation of people being born, and they're going to have the bris milah, so that's going to make it more frequent than I don't know, you can't use the word frequent. The frequent was the word they used. More frequent than the shlamim, which was just more common. Okay, Ibayilahu, the Gemara has another question. Tader b'sheina tader. Let's say you have in front of you a carbon that's tader, that's common. You also have a carbon that's not tader. The kadam b'shachat l'sheina tader, but you shechted the wrong one. You shechted the one that was less frequent. You weren't supposed to do that. What's the din now? Do we say that once it's shechted already? Can't leave it now. You have to go bring it. Or maybe yoyev lacher. Maybe you give the blood to someone another kain, like to mamaris bedamai, to stir the blood and keep it from congealing. Ad makriv leila tader, until you bring the one that you were supposed to bring. Ad makriv l'shein tader, and then you go back to the right order. Good question. Like the question is like b'di'evet was shechter already. What happens now? Amar Avuna Misura. Misura gives a teres. Tashema. Prove it from our Mishnah. Shlamim shalemish v'chatas v'asham shal yaim. I have yesterday's shlamim and I have a chatas and an asham of today. We said the rule shal emish kaidem l'shal yaim. Right. This was actually a machlekes. Right. This was machlekes Reb Meir and Reb Shimon. Shlam shalemish shlam shal yaim. Emish. Shlam shalemish chatas v'asham shal yaim. Reb Meir says. Okay, we're following in the quote here. We're following Reb Meir. Shalemesh kaidim. You bring the shlamim of yesterday before the chatas. Hadiyayim. But if it would be today's shlamim, dumya damish, similar to yesterday's. What does it mean? Today's similar to yesterday's. Means that it was brought today, but it was shechted. Ve'echidami. As if it's yesterday's. Now, as if it's yesterday's just means, not that it's actually waiting from yesterday. It means that you messed up and you shechted it beforehand. That's what I mean. You shechted it before, out of order. And we would say then, chatas v'asham kadmi. We would say that the chatas and asham come first, which means that you would have to give the shlamim to someone to stir the blood, and then you would bring the carbon chatas. Gemara says maybe it's not a raya. Dilma shlamim de'emesh v'chatas v'asham de'yayim echem eshkachasla. This that we're trying to look for the case. What would be a case? Would be the shachtinu letarvayu. You shechted both of them. Now, whose blood do you sprinkle first? Mishnah says that you sprinkled the yesterday's shlamim first.
Here, it doesn't matter if it's different people.
Yeah. We have another Mishnah that says whose carbon is brought first. It says the lady's carbon is brought first. You don't want to make them wait. There's other Mishnahs in that. But what we were saying here is that if the shlamim came today, but it was shechted first before, so it's similar to the shlamim of yesterday, and then they shechted the carbon chatas. You sprinkle the carbon chatas before the shlamim. Yeah. When do we do yesterday's carbon? When it actually came yesterday. But if it came today and you shechted it first, then it's not considered yesterday's carbon. Then you do the chatas first, which means someone's going to stir the blood. But if you didn't shecht both of them, you only shechted the shlamim, we'd still have the question of which one would you shecht first. Would you sprinkle the blood of the shlamim first, or would you shech the chatas first? That was our original question. In other words, we don't have a teretz. We don't have a teretz yet. Which one would come first, right? If you shechted it out of order, would you have someone stir the blood? Toshima, come and listen. Davar acher. We'll go back to that Mishnah in Pesachim where we spoke about the Beis Machlekes Beisham and Beisila. It says that Birch Zayayin Tadira. The reason why we say the bracha on the wine before the bracha on Kiddush is because Hagafen comes before. Hagafen is more frequent than Kiddush. Birch Zayayin Tadira. The Kaddish of Shabbos is not as frequent. Tadir comes first. I'm saying now that this is very similar to shechting a carbon. That's not Tadir before the carbon that is Tadir. Why? Because the Kedusha of Shabbos should come before the wine. But nevertheless, we say the bracha on the wine first. Yeah. Rashi says, "Va'afal gav the she'ina tadir kadam uva When Shabbos came, you didn't make Kiddush the first second. When Shabbos came, you waited a little bit, and then you make Kiddush to eat. First, you're davening. So it means Shabbos is already there. So we're comparing this to shechting the one that's less frequent, and then doing the frequent one first. So how would that correspond to us? This would be shechting the shlamim, and now we're thinking that the one that was really supposed to be first, which is the chatas, should now go take precedent. Yeah, that's what we're asking. Nevertheless, we say that the tada comes first, so we should muchach shafel the tada kaidim. Not sure which one now the Gemara wants to be first based on this. Does the Gemara want the tada, the shlamim, to be first? Or does it want the one that's holier to be first? Yeah. Let me see what they say. The obligation to recite the blessing of the day is due to the sanctity of Shabbos. It applies at the start of Shabbos, before wine is placed on the table. Nevertheless, the blessing on the wine takes precedence due to its frequency. So too, the slaughtering of the frequent offering should take precedence, even if the priest had already commenced the sacrificial rites of the infrequent offering. We weren't talking about the infrequent offering. We're talking about a shlamim before a chatas. Yeah, we switched on us a little bit. Okay. So the Gemara answers, the Gemara says, Kachanami, he can't start a raya, because here, even the Asyan, since once the wine is in front of us, command the shchiti tarvayu dami. It's as if both of them are shechted. Since right now they're both in front of us, it's as if they're both sacrifices are shechted. And then of course, they're both shechted at the same time, then of course they're going to do the tadr, the one that's more frequent first. We were thinking that because Shabbos came first, we're thinking that was if the one that one of them was shechted first, and then maybe that's the one that you should continue with. We're saying no, because they're both coming in front of you now, and you have the blessings that you're saying right now. That's as if everything is eligible to be offered right now. So we would just do the one that's more frequent. Tashema, come and listen. Another Gemara that we mentioned before. It says, "Halacha mispal adam." The person davens mincha. Shel mincha v'achakach mispal musafim. Right, the person davens mincha first, and then he davens the musaf. That's if it comes in its time. So what are we seeing? That the mincha, which is more common, even though the musaf is ready, you do the one that's more common. So Achanami, the Gemara says, "Kiven demati is matfilas mincha, command the shchit tavayidami." Both of them are up for are eligible right now, so it's as if they're both shechted in front of you. Amalei Ravacha Breder Ravashi Ravina. And our question was, when you shechted only a shlamim, but you didn't shech the chatas yet, which you were supposed to, right? No. No. Doesn't matter. It's the time for musaf and mincha. Same time. Which one do you do first? Yeah, I know, but maybe at the end of the time, the Maisa we hold that musaf you can daven the whole day. Consider a peshay, I think it's called. Amalei Ravacha Breder Ravashi Ravina. Ravacha, the son of Ravashi, says to Ravina. This is the end of the Amorai period. It says Shachtu Kaidim Chatzos Pasal. If someone shechts a korban Pesach before Chatzos, it's Pasal. Leisha Nemar, because it says Bein Arbayim. It has to be shechted in the afternoon. Kaidim L'Tamid, but if it's shechted before the Tamid of the Bein Arbayim, then it's going to be kosher. What do you do? It's supposed to be. Usually, there's nothing brought after the korban Tamid except for korban Pesach and every Pesach, right? If you shechted the korban Pesach before the Tamid shall Bein Arbayim, it's kosher. But what you do is someone stirs the blood until the korban Tamid is brought. Which means that the korban tamid, which is frequent, comes before the Pesach, even though the korban Pesach was already shechted. The same thing should be by us, that you should mix the blood of the shlamim until the chatas is brought. Right, it's from today. You're supposed to bring it the chatas first. Mar says, really, what happened was the korban tamid was shechted first. Then someone shechted the korban Pesach, and then kadam shachla tamid bereisha. Oh no, the korban Pesach was shechted first before the blood was sprinkled. The korban tamid was shechted, and now whose blood should be sprinkled now? So we say the korban tamid is sprinkled before the Pesach because they're both shechted in front of us. So now we have an option of which one to sprinkle. So we're going to go with the korban tamid first. Amalei Ravacha Sabala Ravashi Maslisa Namidek. I'll prove it to you. What you're saying is correct. Diktani Ach Yizrik Asadam. Ach Yizrik Adam. Until you sprinkle the blood. Like Tani Ach Yishchet Yizrik Dam. It doesn't say until you shecht and sprinkle the blood. Shema Mina. You see clearly that the korban tamid was already shechted. Now our question is, which blood do you sprinkle first? Very careful not to give us a teretz over here. Leaves it as a question. Bekulan, we have a new Mishnah. It says Bekulan Kayanim Rashayim. A new piece of the Mishnah. It says that in all of the korbanos, the Kayanim are able to change the way they eat it. They could eat it roasted or boiled. My time, what's the reason? Amarkra, the pasuk says Lamashcha. And Lamashcha means for anointing, but it means the Gedula, for greatness. We learn from this that the way that the food is eaten in the Beis Hamikdash was eaten in a way, the way the kings eat it. They could eat it all different ways, all different. They don't get even though it's chicken every night, but they make it differently. What do they have by the Beis Hamikdash? Every night it's the same, more meat, but you make it differently. You do it like this. Okay. Should we do the Mishnah? Let's leave the Mishnah. All right, we're up to the Mishnah on the bottom of Sardik.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good day.
Have some.
Come back.